So we've got several things that we're working on today. Um, a friend of mine just had a baby, so we're going to be doing some meals to help her out postpartum. I'm making a shepherd's pie with peach cobbler, and I'm going to do some garlic rolls to go with that. So lots of things to work through, work on today.
And I start with trying to find the recipe. Now, I know my mom has given me a shepherd's pie recipe in the past, and I was confident it was in this little recipe book. Now, as you can see, I'm not terribly organized, so I looked through darn near every page of this thing and I couldn't find it. So I decided we're just going to proceed best that I can with what I can remember was in this thing. So I start gathering my ingredients. I got some frozen mixed veg out because I thought initially that that would probably be, something quick and easy. Also, some Worcestershire sauce, garlic, tomato paste, onion, celery, carrots. And then I'm like, man, I've already got that much fresh produce. I'll put the mixed veg back for another day. That is spicy brown mustard. And I did grab a bag of frozen peas because I know my mom's recipe for this has peas in it. Now, ultimately, I did forget to put the peas in. They sat out on the counter for a couple hours and then went into the fridge and we had those for dinner. But such is life. So I start by adding that frozen garlic, tomato paste, and butter into the pan. And I'm going to get the veg chopped and added to this as well. I did peel the carrots this time because I am not just making this for myself. And I wanted to cut them into relatively small bites, almost so that as this meat mixture sauce filling for the shepherd's pie is cooking, these vegetables, not fully like disintegrate into it, but become less noticeable. The friend of mine who I was making this for is not necessarily the biggest fan of huge chunks of vegetables, so wanted to cut them up finely. So I spent some time with that. I was battling with this cutting board. Usually I put a wet paper towel underneath it. I don't know what I was thinking on that day because it was just moving all over the place. The wet paper towel really does help secure it, and I just didn't do that. But chopping up some onions, you can see I'm just putting all the veg scraps in this bowl off to the side. I do that quite often when I'm cooking because I save the ends and tops and peels and whatever else of various things for stock. So, I put it in the freezer, gather it up for a month or so, and then I make stock out of it. So that's what I'm doing off to the side there, is just gathering that up. Um, I was crying from the onions, so I rinsed my cutting board and my knife and I washed my hands before washing off the celery stalks here. Um, and then I chopped the tops off of those and the bottoms and finally chopped those up as well, including the leaves. It's absolutely fine to eat the leaves of the celery and, more flavor, really. So once I got all that together, I pulled my little frozen bag of veg scraps out of the freezer and went ahead and added the fresh to that.
All right, I'm gonna start sauteing the vegetables for the shepherd's pie now. Then once these have had an opportunity to start cooking, I will actually take them out of this pan and add the meat to the same pan in which these have been sauteing, and then brown that up and drain it as needed. Um, so that's kind of the next steps for this.
So I was multitasking with the rolls, so I apologize that the shepherd's pie mixture was not front and center. But essentially, I do have it over here on like a medium high heat. I added salt to the vegetables to help them, release some of their moisture so that they would start to brown. I'm not looking for them to caramelize or anything, but I did want them to start cooking because when I put this in the oven, I'm really just looking to melt the cheese. And so I wanted to develop a little flavor on these vegetables before I put everything together, if that makes sense. So I did babysit these a little bit. I stirred them not frequently. It seems a lot more often here, but I stirred them maybe once every 2 to 3 minutes, just to make sure that they weren't burning, and that they were starting to cook through. I added 2 bay leaves to this. Then I also added some mustard powder, thyme, oregano, and maybe just regular pepper as well. Out of that, thyme was certainly the most prominent, and I toasted those spices up with the vegetables a little bit. Then I deglazed the pan with a little bit of vegetable stock. Might have even been a turkey stock. It was something I had made in the past, and I went ahead right after that and put in my pork, ground pork. Now I added some stock to the pork when it was raw because I feel that that helps break down the like ground meat a little bit and makes it I don't know, into smaller like granules as it's cooking. Certainly just brown it up however you like. Then after that was going for a little bit, I added in the ground beef to this mixture as well. If I hadn't been multitasking, I probably would have added all the meat at once, but I was multitasking, so I didn't. Honestly, I couldn't have told the difference. In the finished product, it tasted just fine. So I spent a lot of time really trying to break up the clumps of meat and make sure that it was, you know, breaking down into small pieces because I don't want to personally bite into a shepherd's pie and just get a big mouthful of, you know, unseasoned meat. Um, so I then did add some more seasoning directly to this salt, pepper, more of the thyme, and oregano as well. Since I couldn't find my mom's recipe, I honestly don't know what spices it usually calls for. I know it's got mustard powder, so I did add mustard and quite a bit of Worcestershire sauce to this. And really just mixed it up and incorporated it. Now I let this simmer with the lid on for at least an hour, maybe a little over an hour, before I even started in on the mashed potatoes. Now, since this is still a pantry challenge week for me, I'm using stock that I had frozen in the freezer for this, as well as boxed mashed potatoes. Would I usually boil my own potatoes and make my own mash? Absolutely. But I didn't have potatoes. And in the spirit of Pantry Challenge, I didn't buy potatoes. Now, I will say for the shepherd's pie, I did buy the meat. I did not have that on hand. But that's the only ingredient that I bought for this. So, I am tasting now the meat mixture for seasoning. I thought it tasted good, to be honest. So I'm just waiting for my little frozen stock pucks to thaw out, so that the liquid there will start getting hot enough to melt the butter. Now, I spooned out some of the liquid from our meat mixture and I added maybe 2 to 3 tablespoons of flour to that. Then I had to go wash a whisk, but I whisked up the flour and the liquid from the shepherd's pie in a separate bowl and then poured it in. The intention of this was to thicken the liquid that had reduced out of all of the things that I put in the meat mixture, so that it would form a sauce that was a little, better mouthfeel and it held together a little better on a spoon. I'm not looking to get rid of sauce or liquids altogether from the meat. I just needed it to be a little less juicy. So, did that. Still waiting. It felt like forever, but waiting for the stock to fully melt and the butter that I put in there to fully melt. I didn't feel that I needed a whole lot of other flavors for the mashed potatoes because the stock that I had that I used for this was very flavorful on its own. And so I just added mashed potato, the dried potato flakes. I used my heart for the measurement on that. I have no idea how much I put in there, but it was too much. So then I used a little milk to thin that back out. It did need salt, so I added some salt and some pepper, mixed it back up, grabbed a new spoon, tasted it again. Tasting is so important in stuff like this. And then ultimately add a little bit more milk just to get it to the consistency that I liked. Then it was time to assemble the pie. I did spray the pan a little bit for this. And I knew I needed cheese for the top. Now I had at the beginning of my pantry challenge a large collection of cheese in the fridge. So I grabbed sharp cheddar and Colby Jack. Usually I would just use cheddar for this, but hey, when you can, mix it up, change it up, and it was still delicious. So shredded all the cheese, and then we are ready to assemble the pie, the shepherd's pie that is. So I put the meat mixture down at the bottom. This is probably 75% of the shepherd's pie, followed by the mashed potatoes, which ideally I would have liked a thicker layer of potatoes, but it just didn't work out, so that's fine. And then cheese on the top to your liking. I put a lot, but not all of it. I felt that adding the last bit there would be too much. And so I did forget to put the peas in. Of course, I realized this after the whole thing is assembled, but it baked in the oven for maybe about 45 minutes, and here it is coming out hot, bubbly, and delicious, very